Thank you all for being here. Thank you for having me. I'm going to go a little off script today. Just first of all, I want to say to everyone else that just spoke what they said. There is a movement, there is energy out there like we've never seen before. I'm sure you're all seeing it, and it didn't just start on January 19th. This has been building and building and building. Last spring, when we started hearing this concept of Tea Party. Well, Tea Party, when my girls were younger, a tea party we sat around with the little plastic cups, the little pitcher, and we had a tea party. The Tea Party movement, somebody once asked, what is it? It's not a movement, it's not a party. Americans are starting to wake up. Every one of you here, every American out there that is now active politically, said at one point, there's an issue, or a number of issues, that just get me at the core, and that I need to get up, I need to do something about it. As an American, I need to stand up and take action, because, as it was said before, if it's not me, if I'm not for myself, what am I? If I'm only for myself, misquoting, but if I'm just for myself, what am I? And if not now, when? Now is the time. Last April 15th, I actually announced my candidacy. I don't know if anybody here heard me. I know Perry did. She's the only one. We heard on the radio that people were gathering in Boston for a tea party to stand up. Taxed enough already. We had to be there. And I stood up on the podium there, and I said, my name is Marty Lamb. I'm from Holliston. I am running against Jim McGovern, and I will be your next congressman. Now, 1 trillion to 1 odds at that time, of course. The comments, friends, family, neighbors, anyone I ran into, of course the question was, you nuts? Well, have you looked at the numbers? Have you looked at how many Republicans there are in your district and how many Democrats? You'll never do it. Well, I really didn't think I'd make it at that time, but I knew I had to do it. I got my wife Perry's blessing. In fact, a little more than a blessing. Her words were, you need to do it. If you don't do it, you will regret it the rest of your life. That's why I'm here. Our patriots over 200 years ago said, we need to stand up, we need to fight the oppression. We need to be the ones on the forefront. Nobody else is going to do it for us. And I'm not that type of person. I need to do it myself. I can't rely on somebody else. I want to tell you a little about myself, a little on script, a little off script. 15 years ago, as Linda said, I started my own business. I'm a real estate attorney. I do closings, residential. You're buying a house, you're selling a house, you're refinancing, you come to me. One-on-one, I sit down with you, we sign some papers, we talk, we get to know each other. I was working at a nice cushy job, real estate attorneys don't make as much as the litigators, nothing like John Edwards would ever make. I can't afford a $400 haircut. But it was a comfortable income. We had a townhouse, my girls, both of whom are here, Alyssa and Sima, and they'll be helping hand out some push cards later behind the table. They were young, we lived in a townhouse, we took family vacations, and life was okay. In fact, life was pretty good. And I said, I need to go out, I need to try it on my own. No cash in my pocket, no promises of business, and Perry said, just like she did now, she said, you need to go for it. Again, if you don't do it, you'll never know, you'll regret it the rest of your life. Folding table, folding chair, cell phone, in an office that wasn't complete yet. In fact, no electric lights yet. I had to go home in the middle of the winter at 3 o'clock because it was dark. But within a couple of years, I had 10 employees. Private sector jobs created out of nowhere. Same time, 15 years ago, there was a guy working as a legislative aide. I started under George McGovern, straight out of school, working in Washington. And his party said, you know what? We have a Republican here in your district. We want you to run against him. The rest is history. No private sector jobs ever created by him. He's been in the seat for almost 14 years in Washington, lives in Washington, doesn't even live in the district. Real life experience, Capitol Hill, no comparison. He doesn't know what it's like to create a job. He doesn't know what it's like to create a payroll, make a payroll. He doesn't know what it costs to put oil in the tank of his house in order to heat his house during the winter. Out of touch with reality. And that's what I see in Washington, the out of touch. They just don't get it. I'm going to go, again, a little off subject here because I was going to talk about tax and cap and trade, about health care, but there was something that was in the news the other day. While we were all watching the media circus, I believe ABC called it the powwow between the Republicans and the Democrats, there was something that was in the news, but it wasn't in the news. It was buried. On Capitol Hill, while everybody else was at the Blair House with the cameras going, there was some legislation introduced, and it was a 37-page piece of legislation, which in Washington is short. 37 pages is nothing. And buried deep inside this piece of legislation that talked about accountability and reporting, where different agencies had to report. This one has to report in 30 days, that in 60 days. There was language in there, and I'm going to read from this. Language will ban cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment during the interrogation of terrorist prisoners. Then it went on to define, and again, I have to read this, I'm sorry, I don't like reading. The act goes on to make it a crime to use tactics that have been shown to be effective in obtaining life-saving information, such as, and of course they mention waterboarding, but then it goes on, because waterboarding is not the issue here. The exploiting of the phobias of the individuals. Listen to the language, it's amazing, it's shocking. Stress positions and the threatened use of force to maintain stress positions. Depriving the individual of necessary food, water, sleep, or medical care. And it's vague. You know, well, they kept me up for 8 hours. Using military working dogs, any use of them. Yes, attack dogs, you know, okay, I can understand somebody talking about that, but I just mentioned phobias. I'm afraid of dogs. Under Islamic law, dogs, pigs, you can't touch them. Again, vague. Goes on to say even prolonged isolation and refining in a cramped quarter, a jail cell. We're at war, whether we like it or not. None of us want to be at war. We were attacked. We were attacked by, and I'll use the word, Islamic jihadists. We need to know who the enemy is, fight the enemy. We have people in Washington that refuse to acknowledge what is happening in the world today. That has to change. We have congressmen, one in particular, that actually believes that we can sit down and talk, make friends, and be the buddies of these terrorists. Whether they're Islamic jihadists out of the Mideast, Ahmadinejad, whether it's Chavez, whether it's the FARC terrorists, this has to stop. We need change now. We need to take back our country. When we capture them, if they are still alive, we need to use all means necessary to get intelligence. No excuse. American life or at stake, no excuse whatsoever. Just going to wrap it up again, off script. We need to go back to basics. We need to go back to the Constitution, what our fathers envisioned when they drafted the Constitution. Representatives, 2-year term, term limits were mentioned, self-imposed. I want to go back to the basics. Put down my pen, was the quill back then, or the plow. Go to Washington for a few years, come back home, come back to my business, represent the people. Main Street, real life, not professional lifetime career politicians.